One of the least surprising outcomes to a battle in the 40K universe is the defeat of the Tau Empire. And it's not just in the lore. The greater good sucks on the tabletop, video games, and even has a terrible reputation amongst the 40K online community. Because of this, I doubt that it's hard to imagine multiple scenarios where the Tau Empire falls and the entire race goes extinct. But if we were to follow this train of thought a little bit deeper, the question changes from could the Tau Empire be destroyed to who could bring death to the greater good. And that's what we're going to talk about today in another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. If you're new to the channel, allow me to introduce myself. I am your host, Gersh1. I have taken it upon myself to share my love of the 40K lore with all of you guys. So if you're interested in learning more about this grimdark universe, please subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoy my work, exterminatus the like button so that YouTube knows you want to see more 40K content and so that I can focus on these 40K lore videos. But with all that said, let's get into 40 facts and lore on the death of the Tau Empire. Now let me be clear, I don't see Games Workshop removing the Tau Empire as a playable faction anytime soon, so these extermination scenarios I'm going to share with you guys are completely theoretical, and although plausible, chances are we will have to deal with the Tau, aka space communists, for the rest of our lives. So let's begin by talking about one faction that has come the closest to completely eradicating the Tau Empire: humanity. This near-death scenario occurred during the Damocles Gulf Crusade, where the Imperium of Man responded to the growing Tau presence in the eastern fringe of the galaxy by launching a sector-scale war against the greater good. I've covered this topic in detail in this video, and I recommend you check it out if you're interested, but the question becomes, could the Imperium duplicate the same destructive power now that the Tau are on their 5th sphere expansion and have grown in power and presence in the Ultima Segmentum? And I don't think they can. The original reason the Imperium failed on their mission to exterminate the Xeno scum known as the Tau was because they were drawn away from the conflict by a bigger and badder threat. The Tyranids were invading the Ultima Segmentum, and it became obvious to the Imperial Military High Command that this new threat was way more dangerous than the Tau Empire. And just like the Tyranids acted as a distraction that prevented the Imperium from committing its full military might against the Tau during the Damocles Gulf Crusade, similar threats exist now in this current era. Humanity has to deal with even more Tyranid hive fleets that are invading the Milky Way galaxy. They have the reawakened Necron dynasties that seem to be amassing under the Silent King's command, and you have a giant warp gash across the entire galaxy called the Cicatrice Maledictum that has dragged down the Imperium into panic and mayhem. In other words, the Imperium of Man's priorities are to defend and maintain the territories lost to these large threats, and are in no position to launch a multi-sector war against the Tau Empire. But what about a faction that has numbers to spare and could easily gather for a great war against the Tau Empire? In other words, the Greenskins. There actually is a good chance that an Orc Wog could come close to destroying the Tau Empire. If you've watched my lore video on the Prophet of the Wog, Godschool Magorok Thraka, you know that he is the greatest Orc war boss fighting in this current era, and in his prophetic vision, he was shown a galaxy engulfed in violence with the Greenskins at the center of every major war zone. Since then, it has become his mission to establish major theaters of war across the galaxy, until the prophecy is finally complete. He began with the Armageddon sector and has since moved on to the Octaria sector. As more and more Greenskins pour into these battle zones, and before the violence reaches its peak, Thraka could target the Tau homeworld as the next stage for his third great Wog. He knows the Tau would put up a good fight because they would do everything in their power to defend their homeworld, and the amount of Daka his boys could loot on their way to the capital planet would be enormous. What makes him so dangerous against the Tau is how common of a threat the Greenskins are to the greater good. Let me explain. On every stage of expansion, the Firecast has had to deal with the Orcs, and through these battles the Tau have developed a systematic response to the Greenskins. But Godschool is no ordinary Greenskin. His cunning has taken the Imperium and the Tyranids by surprise on almost every major battle zone. And I can see the Tau Empire making the same terrible mistake, underestimating the Great Warlord and finding themselves at the center of a massive Greenskin horde. And the only thing that could save the Tau in a situation against a full-scale Thraka invasion is putting up a good fight. Because if Godschool's main goal is to start another never-ending war against the Tau, the complete destruction of the Empire is not likely. Similar to what happened on Armageddon, once Thraka is satisfied with how entrenched his army is, he will simply move on to the next great battle, leaving his generals to continue the eternal invasion of the Tau Empire. Now what about a faction that would prefer a quick and direct extermination of the Tau Empire and wouldn't want to keep them alive, like the Eldar? The Eldar race are way more mobile and artful in their attack against the other major powers. In other words, if the Eldar have a reason to attack a species, they would do so in the most precise and efficient way possible. However, we've only seen small-scale battles between the Eldar and the Tau Empire, and this is because the Eldar don't really seem to care about the greater good. They have no desire to stop them from expanding across the galaxy as long as they stay away from their craft worlds. They don't even contemplate joining the greater good, and their technological and psychic presence compared to the Eldar present zero threat. Now, I could see small skirmishes continuing to break out between the two factions, but for the most part, the Tau are not even a second thought to the ancient and prescient Eldar. And when it comes to the Dark Eldar, their perception of the Tau Empire is that of a herd of cattle, to be used as a source of substance for their pleasure, not as a race that possesses any significant threat to their way of life. Now, another faction that I doubt would care about the existence of the Tau Empire is Chaos. If you've checked out my video on the Chaos Corrupted Tau, you would know that the reason this form of possession is so rare is because Chaos entities prefer other species that have a stronger presence in the warp compared to the Tau. Even when the Tau have entered the Immaterium, the Chaos Demons assault their ships and go straight for the Tau auxiliaries, completely ignoring the Tau themselves. With such an undesirable soul, the Chaos Gods wouldn't bother trying to eradicate the Tau Empire, because just like the Eldar, they don't seem to be a threat worth destroying. However, this insignificant presence in the warp, coupled with their affinity towards technology, is a reason why this next faction could easily target the Tau Empire for extermination. I'm talking about the Necrons. As more and more dynasties awaken from their great sleep, the more conflict that would arise between these two factions. This is because the Tau have unwittingly colonized the territories that once belonged to the Necrons, and the overlords do not feel like negotiating over these lands. To them, the Tau are intruders, and they must be kicked out. And when you compare the military technology of the Tau versus the Necrons are far superior. The only chance for survival the Tau have against the Necrons is if they are used as biological vessels for a reverse biotransference process, but that might not be the goal for all Necron dynasties. And finally, we get to the Tyranids. The Great Devourer has bulldozed through the galaxy and destroyed entire races like the Squats and the Zotes, so consuming such a static empire like the Tau would be no problem for the Tyranids. And given that every single major battle against this threat has had to be a military feat of cooperation between various factions in the 40K universe, the Tau don't stand a chance against the Tyranids. And that's the rundown of who I think could destroy the Tau Empire. In reality, all of them could destroy the Tau Empire. In the lore, they're not that strong. Like, if the Imperium really did want to create a crusade specifically targeting the Tau Empire, I feel like they could destroy them, but it's just not plausible right now, or it's just like something that would probably not happen because of the Cicatrice Maledictum and like the Chaos threat, the Necron threat, and the Tyranid threat. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. If you guys like this concept of like how factions would be destroyed, I do have a Death of the Tyranids and a Death of the Orcs where I go over the scenarios, very specific scenarios as to how these factions would be destroyed. It's a little harder for those because they seem to be tougher than the Tau Empire. Now, I'm actually kind of excited for the new Tau Codex that's going to come out. It seems like they are going to get some buffs that are going to make them tough on the tabletop. So hopefully that is good. But thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you guys are enjoying Tau-sember. If you have any other suggestions for topics about the Tau, please let me know in the comment section below. For the first 2 days that this video is up, I'm going to be in the comment section talking to you guys, and I do need your help. I'm kind of drawing a blank as to what type of Tau topics you guys want to hear about. So I would appreciate if you guys made suggestions. But with all that said, this was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first.